Lucas Marshall, a wealthy and arrogant man, agreed to a bet that would change his life in ways he never expected. He was used to winning in business, and in life, and competition fueled him, but when his close friend Jack made a bold challenge at a lavish New York party, Lucas was intrigued. Jack smirked and threw out the challenge. "Let's see if you can win this one, Lucas. I bet you wouldn't have the guts to marry a woman who doesn't fit your usual type." Lucas, known for dating beautiful women, was taken aback, but always eager to prove himself. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "And what's the prize?" With mischievous grin, Jack raised a champagne glass and said, $1,000,000 to the winner. "But you have to marry her and stay married for at least 6 months." Lucas, feeling the rush of competition and the appeal of a financial challenge, agreed. Without hesitation, the woman Jack had in mind was Chloe Richards, someone who didn't fit conventional beauty standards. Lucas didn't know her, but to him it was just another deal to win. Days later, Lucas received more details about Chloe. She was confident, independent, and strong-willed. Nothing like the women Lucas was used to. This intrigued him, even more used to being in control. He wondered how he would handle someone who wouldn't bend. As their first meeting took place at a luxurious restaurant. When Chloe arrived, Lucas immediately noticed how different she was from anyone he had ever met. She didn't seem intimidated by the fancy setting or by Lucas himself. Instead, she met his gaze with firm confidence. "You must be Lucas Marshall," Chloe said directly as she sat down. "And you must be Chloe Richards," Lucas replied with a controlled smile, extending his hand. She hesitated briefly before shaking it with a strong grip, showing her determination. "Leighton, not beat around the bush," Chloe began, her tone straightforward. "I know why we're here. I know about the terms and conditions." Lucas was surprised by her bluntness, but didn't show it. "And yet, you still agreed to meet?" he asked, curious about her motivations. Chloe paused for a moment before answering. "Let's just say I have my reasons. I'm not naive, Lucas. 6 months may seem short, but a lot can change in that time. If you think you can manipulate or control me, you're mistaken." Lucas smiled. Chloe was proving to be more of a challenge than he had anticipated, which only made things more interesting for him. As their first meeting ended, Lucas found himself increasingly intrigued by Chloe. She wasn't like anyone he had met before. She wasn't afraid of him, and that piqued his curiosity, even admiration. Days passed, and Lucas couldn't stop thinking about how to approach the next step. He was used to being the master of the game, but now it seemed Chloe had her own moves. Their second meeting took place at a simple cafe, a far cry from the glamorous restaurants Lucas usually frequented. Chloe had suggested the spot, and Lucas, curious, agreed. He wanted to understand who she was and why she had agreed to what seemed like a temporary contract of marriage. When Lucas arrived, Chloe was already there sipping tea with a calm smile. She greeted him warmly, without the coldness of their first encounter, but still carried herself with that same unshakable confidence. "I thought you preferred 5-star restaurant," Chloe teased, as Lucas sat down. "Sometimes it's good to break the routine," Lucas replied, trying to sound casual, though he felt slightly out of his element. Insisted on sticking to her simple, modest routine, never giving in to the trappings of wealth. "I don't need these things, Lucas," she would say with a calmness that only made him more irritated. It deeply bothered him. Lucas, who always got everything he wanted, was seeing his authority challenged. For the first time, it wasn't just about the bed anymore. Now it was personal. He had to win Chloe over somehow. He needed to prove that in the end he was the one in control. That's when he started playing more aggressively. He stopped her from going to work, offering reasons like, "You don't need a paycheck anymore, or your role as my wife." When Chloe insisted, he made her wait for hours for meetings she thought were important. Lucas manipulated schedule situations, everything to maintain control. But Chloe didn't give in. She was a solid rock against Lucas's attempts, and that only intensified his desire to break her. Their relationship began to turn into a minefield. Small provocations surfaced in trivial conversations where Chloe, with sharp words, diffused every attempt Lucas made to make her feel inferior or controlled. On one particularly tense night, Lucas tried a more emotional approach. "I don't understand you, Chloe," he said, staring at her with a mix of frustration and curiosity. "Any other woman would be happy to live this kind of luxury, but you act like it's not enough. What do you really want?" Chloe, who had been impassive until that moment, finally lifted her eyes, and they gleamed with an intensity Lucas hadn't expected. "What do I want? I want respect, Lucas. I'm not a piece on your chessboard. You think you can control me with money, but you're wrong. Money doesn't buy dignity or integrity. You might have all these things around you, but you're empty inside, and that's what you can't stand." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. For the first time, Lucas felt that he might be losing more than just control. Chloe wasn't just resisting his power. She was dismantling the facade he had built over the years, and that scared him. No one had ever challenged him like this, and the fact that Chloe saw beyond his wealth made Lucas Fay feel exposed. But instead of backing off, Lucas decided to tighten his grip. He started making plans to isolate Chloe, to make her realize that without him her life would be much harder. He cut off contacts, closed doors that could advance her career, and even sabotage important events she was organizing. However, Chloe wasn't the type to be easily intimidated with. Every blow, she stood back up more determined than before. She held on to her dignity, refusing to be shaped by Lucas. And then one night, Chloe played her own card. "Lucas, you think you're in control, don't you?" she said calculatedly. "But what you don't know is that I have a plan too. And believe me, when the time is right, you'll see this whole game is built on something much bigger than you ever imagined." Lucas stared at her, surprised for the first time. He realized he might have underestimated Chloe, and for the first time, he felt the fear that in the end, he might not be the winner of this game. The weeks went by like a tightly stretched rope, growing tenser each day, ready to snap. Lucas, in his obsession with control, tried every way to manipulate the situation to his advantage, but Chloe kept resisting without flinching. She was like a fortress. He couldn't tear down. Every attempt he made only seemed to reinforce her inner strength. But there was something Lucas couldn't deny. As time went on, he started to see Chloe differently. It wasn't just about respecting her resilience. It was something deeper. She was doing something no other woman had ever done. She was disarming him emotionally, and that made him feel uneasy, confused. For the first time, he found himself thinking of her not as part of a bet or an opponent, but as a person he genuinely wanted to understand. One night, after a heated argument, Lucas found himself alone in the large living room, staring out at the city through the glass windows. The glow of the city lights used to give him a sense of power. But now everything felt empty. He wondered why he was feeling this way. Chloe was just a woman he'd married for 6 months. She should have been just a piece in his game, nothing more. But the truth was, she was stirring something inside him. He always controlled his emotions, was now being affected. Chloe could see through facade, and that made him feel vulnerable. As Lucas wrestled with his thoughts, Chloe carried on with her routine. She seemed more distant each day, almost as if she were waiting for something. Lucas felt like there was an invisible wall between them, something he couldn't break through, and it tormented him. He didn't know if it was pride or the fear of losing control, but something about Chloe drew him in a way he never imagined possible. "You're different, Lucas," said Jack, his friend, who had proposed to BET during a casual dinner. "Normally, you'd have everything under control by now.